And we're live. And you're alive. It's fantastic.
Barely.
Barely. Oh, man. Man, it's good to have you back. I just want to say that first and foremost. It's good to have you back. It's good to be back here doing this again.
I'm glad to at least be partially returned.
Yeah.
Don't have a lot of projection. Don't have a lot of lung capacity. Garrett wanted me to do this video last Sunday to say hello and let everybody know I was still here. But I didn't do it because people would have been alarmed of my condition on Sunday.
Yeah, there would have been more questions
than answers for sure. Answers. I was not breathing well.
But you are now.
I'm breathing better.
Better, yeah.
I'm pacing myself today. I had a very good day because it was my first day in 21 days without a fever.
That's wild. I can't imagine.
Glorious.
I don't want to imagine.
Glorious, to say the least. So I'm not up to 100%, but I'm functional.
Not racing laps and running around.
No. I can walk the dogs now. I couldn't do that a few days ago.
So when we asked who let the dogs out, you did.
No, I was afraid I'd have to chase them if I let them out. So it was good.
Hey, Sarah, good to see you. Sarah Brunson's joining us. Tim,
before you go any further, Sarah Brunson.
Yeah.
Sarah, I hope you can give us a little wave there. Let me tell you, Sarah Brunson makes a mean chicken noodle soup of some sort. I don't even know if there's noodles in it, but there's chicken in it, and it's not like little pieces of Campbell's chicken. I mean, it's like chicken.
The good stuff.
Oh, it's real good.
I almost want to get sick just so I
No, you don't.
Not your sickness.
Okay.
Not your sickness.
Woo.
I want to get, just like under the weather sick so I can try that. Because you have me sold on it.
Oh, it's great. It's great.
So, Sarah, hey, shout out to you, Tim. Hopefully you're going to stick with us and not just see that.
He just came to see if I was alive.
Yeah, if he leaves, I'm going to have to go after him later. Carolyn Mullins, hello. Good evening, Cindy. And, Tom behind the scenes, I'm sure. Noel and his mother, June.
Did you say Jay McCauley? She's popped up on mine.
I didn't see it on mine, but good evening, everybody. So happy.
Peggy Fogarty.
So happy you all can join us.
Yeah, that's great. Great. Hey, everybody, please chime in tonight. That means I talk less, which is good.
That's true.
But my mom went home from the hospital today.
Fantastic. That's great news.
She's been being treated for pneumonia, so she's at home, doing better. Hey, Rose. And talked to Bryce today. Tim. Talked to Bryce today. He's doing okay. Oh, there's Nancy. Hey, Nancy, I just saw your text message earlier today, and thank you for that recommendation. And
there's Jane.
And sweet Jane McCauley. There she is. Great. So we're on the mend. It'll take some time. If you've sent me an email in particular, my email is an overgrown forest right now. I've only opened it a couple times in the last 3 weeks.
And when I saw you last Wednesday, your beard was starting to become an overgrown forest.
It was.
And then you shaved
I cut it back because it was just about to drive me insane.
I was looking forward to like this mountain man.
It would be there if I hadn't. I mean, it was like
a troll coming out of the cave.
Out of control.
I was looking forward to
down here too. It was like
Oh yeah, that's the worst.
Everywhere.
Yeah, neck beard. No,
the neck beard is bad. But
we're not here to talk about neck beards and stuff.
I hope to hear from folks tonight who are watching and joining us for our Bible study. Garrett, we began this study way back in mid-January,
like a year ago.
Not quite that much.
It feels like
mid-January, and tonight was supposed to be the final session.
Yeah. That's
but we are
crazy.
Delayed and waylaid by COVID, so we're not on schedule, but that's okay. We'll finish anyway, won't we?
Right. I think people are anxious and excited and, nipping at the bud for chapter 3, our session 4.
That's right. We had 6 sessions total, an introduction, and then we had all of these R's that followed. We were going to talk about the return the Redeemer, the romance, which is tonight, the resolution,
buckle up,
and the ramifications. But before we get to all of those, there's one more R that is required tonight, and that is review. Because it's been so long since.
I thought you were going to say Ruth.
Yeah, Ruth. Yeah. Now I was gonna make you're infamous for your dad jokes. I was gonna say that we've been ruthless.
We have been
for
ruthless.
A few weeks, but I won't do that. Let's begin with some of our main characters. Tell me, Garrett, what you remember about Naomi.
What do I remember?
What do you remember about Naomi?
Well, I remember that Naomi means pleasant. I remember that she had a husband. She started out with a husband, Elimelech.
She did start out with a husband.
And there was a famine in the land, the house of bread.
That's right.
Bethlehem. And because of the famine, they took off for Moab. And she and Elimelech and her two sons, Mahlon and Chilion.
That's right. One means
weakling. The other
weakling,
means
and
sickly.
one means dead or something.
Yeah. Frail person.
That's
so
right.
they take off for Moab, and they're there for a short period of time. Elimelech, we don't know what happens other than he dies. He leaves the scene very quickly. The two sons marry Moabite women, Orpah and Ruth.
And that brings us to our second major character. Naomi being the number one major character, and now we're at Ruth.
Yep, and then we're at Ruth.
And Ruth is Naomi's daughter-in-law, and her name, I think we have a slide with her name meanings up here. Her name means friend. She is not from Bethlehem. She's not even from Judea or Israel. She is a Moabitess, as they say. And it's critically important to the story because Ruth is a foreigner.
Mm-hmm.
Her language is not native to the Hebrews. Her skin color is probably not the exact same match as with the Hebrews. Her culture is completely different. Her gods are different. Theology is different. Mm-hmm. Ambitions are different. And this is a good lesson for in light of the entire Old Testament, because there can be in the Old Testament at times some interpretations of the law that are so very exclusive.
Mm-hmm.
And yet there are always these provisions for taking care of the foreigner, taking care of the orphan, taking care of the widow, taking care of the outsider.
Right.
And Ruth is a part of that telling. And then we come to Boaz. Tell us about Boaz here.
Well, Boaz, there it is. It's on the screen. His name means strength. Boaz is a relative of Elimelech. Some say he's a distant cousin of sorts. And last week, a few weeks ago now, we were introduced to him. And what the text tells us is that he was a man of noble character. He had some land in which Ruth finds herself gleaning in his field. Mm-hmm. Upstanding citizen.
He is an upstanding citizen. He's a man of integrity. He's a man of honor, and we'll see that especially tonight as we get into chapter 3 in this story. The story unfolds during the time of the judges, and just to give you that timeline again of when we're talking about Old Testament history, I just give you some major bullet points about where we are in this process. You go about all the way, you go all the way back to Abraham, some 2,000 years before Christ. 500 years later, you have the time of Moses and the giving of the law and the conquering of the land. And then after Moses, there is this 500-year window that at the beginning has some order to it. At the end of that has some order to it because Saul becomes king. But in between these, you have this 400-year window of chaos. The wild, wild west. The time of the judges. It's why we find the book of Ruth coming where it does in the canon, tailing the book of Judges. Moses and Joshua, the two key leaders post-Exodus, have died, and you have all these different cowboys and cowgirls, kind of a thing that are liberating the land and trying to impose some sense of justice and order. Samson, Deborah, Gideon, Tola, Eli, and finally Samuel. And it seems best, and this is per the Jewish historian Josephus, that we put the book of Ruth in this transition time before Samuel. And maybe 50 to 75 years before David. 60 years or so before David. So that's where things are. And then we come to this main plot of the book. In Moab, as Garrett has already said, Naomi loses everything. Her husband dies. Her 2 sons die. They were unable to produce children. Naomi's family will become extinct as a result of that. And in the Hebrew eschatology, it's a disaster. It's the worst possible outcome.
Yeah.
Because we're really early in the development of any type of Jewish afterlife here. And so there's not this real sense of, well, I'll be resurrected and everything will work out in the end. Because in the Hebrew mind, your name was carried on with your children.
Right.
And if you did not have children, then your name perished in the earth. And in fact, that's a phrase that you see in the Old and New Testament sometime about their name perishing from the earth.
Yeah, I haven't noticed that. Yeah.
And that's really this. It's a disaster. It's an eschatological disaster, an end times disaster. And so, in the midst of all this, Ruth decides to stay with Naomi. This great verses 16 and 17. And I have put the verses in here to show that Ruth is making a religious conversion, spiritual conversion, not just in her allegiance to her mother-in-law. She is taking on the God of Israel. Ruth replied, when Naomi says to her, turn around, go back to your people, go back to your families. I can't give you any more sons. You wouldn't wait if I birthed a son tonight. Would you wait for him to come of age? And so Ruth says, don't ask me to leave you and turn back. Wherever you go, I will go. Wherever you live, I will live. Your people will be my people. And then watch this. And your God will be my God. And she uses the word Elohim, generic word for God. Your God will be my God. Wherever you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May Yahweh, and she uses the proper name for the Hebrew God, punish me severely if I allow anything but death to separate us. And so Yahweh is not Moab's God. Chemosh was Moab's God. We talked about him too. A despicable character like Molech. The Moab God demanded child sacrifice.
Right, yeah.
And so what they would do, and it's really hideous, is they would take this image of Chemosh or Molech. They're essentially the same gods, go by different names. They would take this bronze or brass image of it.
Yeah.
And it had extended arms like this. Mm-hmm. And they would heat this image in the fire, and then cast their children into the arms.
Yeah,
of this,
horrendous.
Their firstborn, typically. And there's so much to say about not just the depravity of that, but this whole firstborn and how that plays a role in the Old Testament all the way through into modern contemporary theology at the same time. So Naomi comes home with Ruth, and she changes her name to Mara.
Mm-hmm. Which means,
tell us about Mara.
Mara means bitter.
It does.
That's.
And she is, and I think that it's important not to let's not soften how she feels.
Right. Yeah. She just went through some extremely tragic events. She leaves everything behind, to begin with, from Bethlehem to Moab, which is, as we've explained before, enemy territory. These are public enemy number one.
Yeah.
And she goes there. It's a humbling experience. She loses everything. And as she returns, her daughter-in-laws decide to follow her. At one point, she stops and turns around and says, "No, you could go back home." And Orpah leaves. Ruth decides to follow, which you read the text. So yeah, when she arrives back years, decade and a half later, what does she have left? Yeah, she has nothing to her name, and yeah, of course she has the right to be called Mara.
Yeah, in chapter 1, I think it's verse number 13. She says, it's one of the most striking verses in the early chapter. God Almighty has raised His fist against me.
Yeah, He's raised His hands against me.
God is beating me down, and then when she comes back to Bethlehem and she makes her case again, she says the same thing to the people that are, because this would have been quite the scandal. She'd been gone, probably 20 years.
Yeah.
And she comes back home, and those bouncing little boys she had are dead. And Elkanah's not with her. He is dead. And she has this beautiful, strange, exotic woman from a foreign country with her. And that would have gained, as we saw in chapter 2, it gets a lot of attention around town.
Yeah, who's that lady?
Who is that lady? She's apparently very striking, and so the people kind of gather around to see what the deal is, and Naomi has nothing but really a blistering word about what she's experienced, that she's empty. They get back to Bethlehem in time for the spring harvest. You might remember that there are 2 crops that are coming of age to be harvested in the spring. There is both the barley and the wheat. The barley matures first. In this little picture there, the barley is on your right.
That's right.
That's right.
The wheat is on the left.
The wheat is on the left. And we know just about exactly when this was. You couldn't eat new grain harvest from the field until after the Feast of Unleavened Bread, after Passover. So this is late March at the very earliest to mid-April, just the time that Passover would be these days, following the lunar calendar, and thus Easter being dated according to the lunar calendar as well. They would have taken a sickle, this curved implement with a handle, this sling blade sort of a thing, a machete, and they would have struck the grain low to the ground, tied it in sheaves. I just have to go back to this sickle here that we have a picture of, because it's awesome. That is a sickle from Bronze Age Egypt, and so that's not from Palestine, but it would have been reflective of the time.
Right.
And a slick handle. The farmer's hand has been on it for a long time, and this particular one is set with flint. Ruth lived at the end of the Bronze Age, so iron tools are not. By the time the time David comes around, iron is. In fact, sometimes when he's fighting with the Philistines, it's like, oh my God, they've got iron weapons, because they're in this transition period, technology-wise, big technological leap. And so I love the story. I shouldn't probably. It's very violent and ugly, but I do love the story. In the book of Judges, Samson kills about 1,000 guys with one of these that you see on your screen right here, because often if it wasn't a piece of wood, it was a jawbone of an animal. And in Judges, it says that Samuel killed the Philistines, 1,000 of them with the jawbone of an ass. I always love that because of the King James version.
Yeah, I was going to ask you. It was of a donkey, but what does it say in the text?
That's what it says in the King James. He's just taking a harvesting implement and knocking heads with it.
Yeah, which is wild to
right.
Imagine.
And so
they don't put that in the children's portion of the
don't.
Bible.
They did in mine though.
The cartoon of
mine was pretty. The flannel board in my Sunday school class is pretty intense. I don't know if you know what that is.
I don't know.
The blue flannel board and the little characters,
Okay, kids.
That's
I just picture
exactly right. But so the harvest season is going on. Boaz, all of his workers are collecting all of this grain like this, and there was an allowance within Jewish law that if you were widowed or poor or a traveler or a foreigner or some other outsider, you were allowed to gather the cut wheat around the edges of the field. And not all the farmers did this, but they were to let wheat or barley stand so that the poor could gather it.
Mm-hmm.
Ruth finds herself somehow in Boaz's field,
the right field
at the right time. He is struck by her. He instructs his workers leave extra handfuls of grain for her. He invites her to his table. They have lunch together. He sends her home with a bushel of fresh barley for him and Naomi.
Right.
And he's doing it not just for Ruth, he's doing it for Naomi.
Right.
Because he knows where Ruth now fits into this story. And out of his family obligation to her deceased husband, we see Boaz coming on the scene with great integrity, really going above and beyond anything that is required. And so Ruth comes home after working like this, and she tells Naomi, I just happened to be in this guy's field. His name is Boaz. Naomi goes bananas because Boaz is a redeemer. And we'll talk a little bit about that later, and much more about it next week. and she finds a place of safety there for the entire harvest season.
And this is, towards the end of chapter 2, when we see this take place. This is really the first time that we begin to see Naomi have hope. You start to see this turn of events, and
it really changes.
Plays out in chapter 3.
Changes her. At the end of chapter 1, she's just mad as hell, and I'm not going to take it anymore.
Right. Rightfully so.
And at the end of chapter 2, verse 20, she says, the Lord bless him. He is showing kindness to us. But not only to us, but to your dead husband and hers. Mm-hmm. So she recognized that something good is afoot. And
we're about to talk about feet here.
That's right. And she's excited about it. And she... This is I just love Naomi here. She's the puppet master. Mm-hmm. She really goes to work in this 3rd chapter to put this scheme together, not just for Ruth's benefit, but for the benefit of the family name. And so I'm going to let you read verses 1 through 9, and I'm going to breathe.
Yes, please breathe. So here we have in the New Living Translation, if I remember correctly. It says, one day Naomi said to Ruth, my daughter, it's time that I find a permanent home for you so that you will be provided for. Boaz is a close relative of ours, and he's been very kind by letting you gather grain with his young women. Tonight he will be winnowing barley at the threshing floor. Now do as I tell you. Take a bath.
Isn't this great?
Take a bath, please, and put on perfume and dress in your nicest clothes. Then go to the threshing floor, but don't let Boaz see you until he has finished eating and drinking. Mm-hmm. Be sure to notice where he lies down. Then go and uncover his feet and lie down there. He will tell you what to do. And Ruth replied, I will do everything you say. So she went down to the threshing floor that night and followed the instructions of her mother-in-law. After Boaz had finished eating and drinking and was in good spirits, he lay down at the far end of the pile of grain and went to sleep. Then Ruth came quietly, uncovered his feet, and lay down. Around midnight, Boaz suddenly woke up and turned over. He was surprised to find a woman lying at his feet. Who are you? He asked. I'm your servant Ruth, she replied. Spread the corner of your covering over me, for you are my family redeemer. And we have a picture for you. We talked about feet.
We do. Go ahead. This is actually I pulled this from a rabbi's website earlier today, and it just cracked me up. So I was reading some of the rabbinical...
It's like hobbit feet.
Yeah, I was reading some of the rabbinical insights, staying away from what we Western Christian people think about this text, because it is distinctively Hebrew and distinctively ancient, and there is a lot of cultural weirdness going on when you read these verses.
There's a couple unique interpretations of what this is talking about.
But what isn't weird, what is crystal clear, is Naomi is still in the game. And that's really the part that I love. This is her scheme.
Yeah.
And you look at her here, and she's making her play, man. And she doesn't wait long. It's still barley season, so the wheat hasn't come in yet. So this is like, we're talking just weeks or days since the whole process began. She didn't wait till May. It's still early in the season when she makes her play, and it's pretty obvious. Get yourself dolled up, find your best clothes, find your best perfume, and here's what you're gonna do. You're gonna go down to the threshing floor.
You're gonna make him notice you.
Yes, you're gonna make him notice you, and you're gonna do more than that. You're going to invite him, challenge him to live up to his requirements. Now, there's a lot going on here. First of all, a landowner during the harvest season, it would not be unusual for this landowner to be at the threshing floor at night. 2 reasons.
Right.
Number one, the winds die down, and you could actually thresh the wheat or the barley without losing the grain, without the wind blowing it too far away. That's number one. And number two, when you got this huge pile of grain that you've been waiting on all year, somebody's got to watch it. Somebody's got to watch over it. Somebody's got to guard it.
That stuff.
This area, this threshing floor, isn't a room. It's an open area. So, it's not like it's completely private. There would have been other people napping and sleeping overnight. It's a big area. We showed you, I don't have a picture tonight, but we showed a picture a couple of weeks ago of the ancient threshing floor at Bethlehem, and it's bigger than your house. It's
huge, yeah.
It's bigger than your entire lot here where you live, so it's a big area. And Naomi seems to know this because she's like, you watch this man where he lays down. In other words, don't go lay down by the wrong person.
Yeah.
Make sure you got the right guy.
And one thing I noticed in reviewing for this is that, you mentioned it wasn't unusual for the landowner to be there, but it wasn't unusual for a bunch of guys to be there. The camaraderie there, it was because of the harvest season. It was a time of festivity.
They're drinking,
having a good time.
They're eating because he's in good spirits.
Yep.
And Naomi anticipated this as well.
Yep.
Wait till he's had dinner.
Wait until it's dark. Wait until they've had enough, because you don't want anybody else seeing you.
Right.
Because, I mean, you think about the implications behind it, too. It's not just, you don't want Boaz to see you. You don't want anybody else.
No, it's discretion. It's complete discretion. So
it's being safe.
So there's the instructions are weird. Here's the culturally weird thing. Go to the foot of his bed, essentially, and uncover his feet and lay down. Uncover his feet. Now, Tim has already made a comment about Baby Ruth. Tim, you're not far off. There are actually some rabbinical commentators who say that this is a euphemism, that uncover his feet. This says take his pants off.
I'm zooming in on your face here.
That's okay.
Say that one.
I said it's a euphemism. Uncover his feet can mean take his pants off. Now, some rabbinical scholars actually propose that. I'm not a rabbi, and I'm not a Hebrew.
We don't have a picture for that, sorry.
And I'm not a Hebrew scholar, but there's a problem with that, because no comparable euphemism is used anywhere else in the Old Testament, number one.
They try to draw a correlation with Tamar.
Yeah,
they try to do that, but yeah, what you see with this particular text and what we know about the character of Boaz and the character of Naomi,
their integrity is never in doubt.
Exactly.
About what's going on. Third, it's a public place.
Yeah.
Okay? It's a public place. And in that culture, that type of an overt sexual entrance could have got Ruth killed on the spot.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
This isn't a Hollywood movie.
It's a big open thing, yeah, but the risk of that is just is far greater for a multitude of reasons.
Right.
Yeah. So
the better option, I think, is the second option: uncover his feet, Make him cold so that he will wake up.
Yeah. Because, if your feet are uncovered, you're going to wake up.
So Naomi says, he's going to settle down. He's going to be happy. He's going to have had wine, full stomach. He's going to go to sleep pretty sound.
The booze are going to wear off at some point.
Uncover his feet. He's going to get cold. He's going to startle. He's going to wake up, and you're going to be there. And that's exactly what happens. And as we'll see in a minute, when he wakes up, it's obvious that, the innuendo is not involved at all, because he's startled.
Right. He's startled, yeah.
And he sees, good Lord, there's somebody asleep at my feet.
Yeah.
Only a servant slept at the foot of the master's bed.
Yeah.
And so what Ruth is doing here is she hasn't come to Boaz in the middle of the day and demanded her rights.
Right.
Because she could do that. Legally, she could do that.
She didn't want to make a scene. This was all
She has come to him quietly, in the cover of darkness, discreetly, and she is essentially asking him. She is proposing.
Yeah, the garment covered me.
Right. She is proposing. And there's a play on, if you're still listening to us after all of this, there's a play on words here in the text where she uncovers his feet. Mm-hmm. And then she says, cover me with your garment. And it's the same word. So it's as if she is saying, he wakes up startled and cold in the night. And she is saying, that's where I am. I am uncovered. I don't have a husband. I don't have a family. And I am the one in the cold, in the dark. Cover me. And it's a great play on words right there. Mm-hmm. And she's asking Boaz to be that redeemer that will save Naomi's family by marriage to her.
And going back to chapter 2, it's some say that's also a play on Boaz's words to her, in which he says, "May the Lord," here I have it here, "May the Lord, the God of Israel,
whom you take refuge,
under whose wings you have come to take refuge, right, reward you fully for what you have done." It's almost as if that's being returned.
That's 2:12.
I didn't have the number, but
I think it's 2:12. But it's the same root word is being used in all of these places.
Yeah, beautifully written. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, good slide. You had it there.
I did. I didn't have the
outstanding.
So for all of you romance novel readers, and we going back to this, don't be reading too much into the uncovering the feet.
But
thing.
it still takes courage,
romantic,
and it's still a beautiful thing. That again, she's an outsider. Excuse me. She's an outsider. She's marginalized. She's a foreigner. Yeah. And yet she finds the courage with Naomi's help to do this. It's still a great risk.
The whole, we see courage as a theme throughout this whole thing. It's incredible. Really incredible.
Let's grab verses 10 through 15.
Yeah.
Let's see what Boaz is like, "Oh my God, who are you?" And then
he almost says, "Oh my God."
Yeah, and then Boaz's response in verses 10 through 15.
She could have slipped into it.
Tim's in rare form tonight.
Yeah, he is. All right, starting in verse 10. "The Lord bless you, my daughter," Boaz exclaimed. "You are showing even more family loyalty now than you did before, for you have not gone after a younger man, whether rich or poor. Now don't worry about a thing, my daughter. I will do what is necessary, for everyone in town knows you are a virtuous woman. But while it's true that I am one of your family redeemers, there is another man who is more closely related to you than I am. Stay here tonight, and in the morning I will talk to him. If he is willing to redeem you, very well, let him marry you. But if he is not willing, then as surely as the Lord lives, I will redeem you myself. Now lie down here until the morning." Mm-hmm. So Ruth lay at Boaz's feet until the morning, but she got up before it was light enough for people to recognize each other. For Boaz had said, "No one must know that a woman was here at the threshing floor." Then Boaz said to her, "Bring your cloak and spread it out." He measured six scoops of barley into the cloak and placed it on her back. Then he returned to the town.
Second line from Boaz there.
Yeah.
You are showing even more family loyalty now than you did before, for you have not gone after a younger man, whether rich or poor. What does he mean? Ruth doesn't have to do any of this. Okay? Mm-hmm. Back in chapter 2, when Boaz asked his workers, hey, who is that?
Yeah.
And they say, oh, that's Ruth the Moabite who came back with Naomi. And when he finally talks to Ruth for the first time, he talks about her integrity and her devotion to her mother-in-law.
Right.
That he's astounded. You gave up your country. You gave up
all of that.
Your place to be with her. So he recognizes her. She's a virtuous person. She has integrity. And so he recognizes, there's no innuendo here, he recognizes immediately what she is asking. So obviously the cultural moorings here, the writer and the participants know everything that's going on. We're sort of looking at it from a distance.
Right.
And she didn't have to do any of this. She's young. She's beautiful. She could have stayed in her country. Even if she had come here, she didn't have to do this for Naomi. Mm-hmm. She could have found her own husband. She could have. But Boaz recognizes that what she is doing here, by entering into this redemption contract,
right,
that it's not just about her. It's about the family name of her former father-in-law and her former husband.
Right.
And Boaz is astounded by that again. And it's obviously he has affection for her. That you saw that in the previous chapter, and this just seems to pull more of that out.
I think to further build a standing with the idea that nothing happened there on the threshing floor.
And it's not because we're prudes or anything like that. It's just it doesn't make sense in light of the rest of the chapter and what we know about the people.
Yeah, because
involved.
if there is another redeemer ahead, that becomes an issue.
And that is the wrinkle.
Yeah.
That we see here, is that Naomi's made her play with Ruth, and Ruth's been a willing participant here, and they've thrown all the chips in here. This is their gamble. This is our guy. And everything is going swimmingly. And Boaz says, there's another guy. There's one more person. And we'll, like I said, we'll talk about, I think, we'll talk about this more next week, but understand this about the Redeemer. The Redeemer's role, a kinsman, is built for just this situation. That if a woman of childbearing age loses her husband and is left without husband or child, it was up to a redeemer to step forward, to marry that woman, to put his protection around her, take him into his household, and the child produced by that would be his. But it would also carry the former family's name forward.
Yeah.
So it's very, very much a culture of inclusion here, and Boaz is a cousin, uncle, something, but there's a closer cousin. There's someone up the family tree that is a closer relative, and it is the closest relative's prerogative to either exercise this right, this privilege, or not. And Boaz, for the first time, makes us aware that there is another.
Yeah, and
it's pretty wild.
I don't want to jump ahead, but how you see it play out, how you see Boaz use the situation, and how it plays out in chapter 4 is just
it's great.
Brilliant.
It's fun.
It's fantastic.
Yeah. There's
I don't want to jump ahead.
We won't jump ahead, but there's so much more great cultural rooting there of how you work this out as a family. Boaz tells her to stay for the night. And, we're back to the innuendo. Hey, why don't you just spend the night? Well, the text says she spent the night right there at his feet. Mm-hmm. She's offered herself really in a very submissive, servant-like posture. She's not demanding her rights. Though that was within her right to do that. Mm-hmm. That's the thing as well. Why spend the rest of the night? Well, she's a beautiful woman. She's dressed to the nines.
Smells good.
She smells great.
She's bathed.
She can't be walking around the streets of Bethlehem after midnight like that.
They're going to think she's a harlot.
They're going to think she's a prostitute.
Yeah.
So, hey, you just stay right here for her own safety. But at the same time, make sure you leave early enough so that no one else sees you. Mm-hmm. Now, that's their business. It's not like, mm-hmm. Who cares what people think? That's not the point. The point is Boaz is protecting her reputation.
Yeah.
Nobody needs to see her slinking off in the early morning away from Boaz saying, hey, what's going on down there at the threshing floor? Why cause that kind of trouble mm-hmm. when obviously he's trying to do and going to do the right thing in this process?
Exactly.
So there's a lot of... this would make a great stage play in that sense.
Tim could be Boaz.
Yeah, it would make a great one. But he's not going to... And this is one thing you love about Boaz. Nowhere along the way does he put Naomi or Ruth in a difficult situation.
Right.
He bears the responsibility.
Yeah,
exactly. He says here, I'm going to go work this out.
Yep.
I'm going to go. I'll have an answer.
I'll see to it that tomorrow this is going to take
right.
place. We're going to find out.
And he's not. Maybe he is that in love with her already. It mm-hmm. could be definitely it, and it speaks again to his integrity. Here this is. Don't let it. Do something with it. And the comparison that's made earlier to Tamar is a good one in this sense. And if you go back to Tamar, and it's a long story and we don't have time to get into it tonight, Tamar ended up tricking her own father-in-law mm-hmm. to sleeping with him. She dressed up like a prostitute.
Right.
Because her father-in-law would not play the role of kinsman redeemer.
Yeah, because it was Judah. It was his two sons.
Right.
Yeah, and they both died.
And so she was demanding her rights, and Judah would not do what was right. Yeah. As a result, and Judah just prolonged it until there was a major family crisis as a result. Right. Boaz is not going to do that. He's going to make sure that it's resolved as soon as possible. Mm-hmm. All right.
On the verse 16?
16 through 18, last verses for the night.
When Ruth went back to her mother-in-law, Naomi asked, "What happened, my daughter?" Ruth told Naomi everything Boaz had done for her, and she added, "He gave me these 6 scoops of barley and said, 'Don't go back to your mother-in-law empty-handed.' Then Naomi said to her, 'Just be patient, my daughter, until we hear what happens. The man won't rest until he has settled things today.'"
And that's where chapter 3 ends. The puppet master is weaving her magic still, and I love it. It's one of the misunderstandings probably of this book. I think the book is named for Ruth, justifiably so. Never will you find a person with more integrity or more loyalty than Ruth. Mm-hmm. If such a person exists, I don't know who they are. But Naomi is the real deal too. I mean, for all of her crying out to heaven and all of her fist shaking at God and accusations at God, she still believes.
Yeah.
How do we know she still believes? Because she's acting like it. Mm-hmm. She's engaged. She's put her hands on the work. It's, like I said in a talk a couple weeks ago, the 2 little girls who were constantly late for school.
Yeah.
And the principal says, next time you're late, you're in detention. Well, a couple of days later, they're missing the bus and they're running to school. And one of the little girls says, "Let's stop and pray that we won't be late." And the other girl says, "You stop and pray. I'm going to pray while I run." Mm-hmm. And she's the one that would not be late.
Right.
And you see Naomi here praying and complaining, but at the same time working.
Right. Yeah.
Involved. I mean, this has been her. She's orchestrated all of this. None of this happens that we've read about without Naomi's doing. And even here in this case, when it seems like it's just about to come together, but we don't know, it's Naomi who says, "Now let's be patient." I want to do a quick little word study here for you and jump ahead to Ruth 4:1. Let me show you this. And it's good that we're wrapping up soon. I think I've talked about all I can. Is the slide up?
Yeah.
Okay, great. In Ruth 4, the next chapter, jumping ahead a little bit here, Boaz is going to go to the city gate. And that sounds weird to us, but it'd be like town square.
Right.
A lot of informal business was done at the city gate. It's where the elders would gather and chat and talk and read the paper and drink their coffee and spit and do all the other things that old men do. And he goes there to find that Redeemer who is ahead of him in line. But I just want you to see the very first line there. Chapter 4, verse number 1. Boaz went to the town gate and took a seat there. If you back up to chapter 3, verse 18 that Garrett just read, then Naomi said to her, that is to Ruth, "Just be patient, my daughter." The word patient in verse 18 and the word took a seat in verse number 1 are the same Hebrew word. Yashav is the word. A little two-syllable, tiny little word. And it does mean take a seat. It does mean be patient. Do you see that there? It's sit down.
Mm-hmm.
Wait. Be still. The word literally means to inhabit. In other words, settle down.
Mm-hmm.
Simmer down now, we would say. It's a great play on words again. And if Samuel is the writer of Ruth, or whoever is the writer, the scribe that put this together, the scribe who put the book of Ruth together is brilliant. So many little word plays throughout the entire book. But this is one of them. Naomi is saying, we're going to settle in, we're going to wait, because Boaz is going to settle in and do what needs to be done.
Right.
It's out of our hands now. So patience is what's required. And I love that little play on words there. And, we haven't talked about this much as a theme of the book, but patience is certainly a theme.
Huge. Yeah.
Because from Ruth 1:1 to Ruth 4:1 is 30 years.
Yeah, it's a long time.
It's 30 years. And then Naomi and her family are in the latter decades of this 400-year-long period of chaos.
Mm-hmm.
People are waiting. It doesn't mean they're doing nothing, but they're waiting. And they're settling in. Not settling for something. Settling in. Settling down. And, I really didn't see that as a theme. And in fact, most commentaries don't even mention it as a theme until this hinge here between chapter 3 and chapter 4. And I saw those two words in one of my word studies, and I thought, oh, how perfect is that?
Oh, yeah. It's
incredible. Take your seat. Patience.
Buckle up.
Just, things are going to work. God's got to work. Boaz has got to work. We wait. But even what Boaz is doing is waiting.
Mm-hmm.
So the work sometimes is the wait.
And I mean, how critical is that for us today?
I think it gets right at. I think it's right at what we've talked about. Hope being as the overall theme. Hope is tenacity. Hope is perseverance. Hope is resiliency. Hope is carrying on. Hope is pressing on. Hope sometimes is waiting.
Mm-hmm. It's settling in. Yeah.
I haven't done the word study, but I want to all of a sudden. And I'll tell you what, I'll get back with you on this. I would almost wager that the writer of Isaiah, when he says, "But they that wait on the Lord," it's the same word.
I could look it up.
And is directly related to hope. You know the text. For they that wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. They will mount up with wings as eagles.
Yeah.
And my guess is that that's going to be if it's not the exact same word, the root is going to be the same.
It'd be interesting if anybody out there has the access to be able to look up.
I might have known that earlier, but I do have COVID brain, and I'm a little slow on the take, and I didn't realize it till I was talking just now. But I would like to see that. Yeah, would like to see that. But I think it's beautiful, even though there's some uncertainty for Ruth and Naomi at this point. It's beautiful how this chapter ends. Is that Naomi has put Ruth to work. While she's doing her work, Ruth has completed it faithfully, and now we wait. Which is, I cut you off, but which is our lives. You do what you can, and you do the best you can sometimes, and then you wait.
What was I think we did it in the introductory session to kick things off. The story's being written. Can you share that one more time?
Padrigo Thomas.
I don't have the slide for it.
In his poem Narrative Theology, he wrote the poem while he was in therapy. He's had great trauma in his life, and he was in therapy, and the therapist was helping him. And it's a poem he wrote as he was conversing with the therapist, and he said, how long is this pain going to last? Mm-hmm. When am I going to find answers? And the therapist's wise response was, the answer is in the story, but the story is still being told. Mm-hmm. And that's powerful to me. I mean, it's really rung a bell for me. Personally, it really has rung a bell for me in light of 2020.
Yeah.
I'm not ready to talk about some of the things that I've thought about in the last 3 weeks, but I can say this. I don't know if anybody else watching tonight, but I know what it's like to look right over the edge. That's how sick I was.
Yeah,
and when you're racked by fever and pain and tachycardia, arrhythmia problems, which I've had all of those. I was never scared, but I was like, this is how it happens.
This is it.
This is how it happens. You just let go. And obviously, if my heart had not been in as good a shape as it was, I believe it would have knocked me out. But there's a lot of weight in that. I would tell myself at 2, 3 in the morning, daylight's coming, morning's coming,
Right.
And there's nothing you can do but wait.
Yeah.
Nothing you can do.
That when we're talking about this whole settle in, sit and wait, and I'm thinking about the context of the story. Once again going back to Judges, the time frame of when they were led out of Egypt to the kingship of David, and this whole waiting period, and thinking about that, thinking about the story, thinking about where we're at in light of things, you and your personal story over the past few weeks. I mean, it's just, this story connects and hits on so many different levels. How relatable it is of this waiting period of sitting and settling in for this long haul of, life is tricky, life is difficult, life is hard.
It's hard,
but the sun does rise. There's value and purpose in it.
It's hard.
Hope.
There's hard. Hope. It's hard. Life is hard, but life is good.
Yeah.
And when life
it might feel bitter,
and when life isn't good, God is good still.
Right.
And one of the reasons that I know God is so good is that God hasn't killed me. in the sense of that, you can level at God.
Yeah.
You can pull a Naomi and just give out every barrel you got.
Yeah.
And it has not in any way, shape, or form stopped God from being at work in her life. Mm-hmm. And that's hope in itself.
It's huge for us. Yeah. Really huge for us. When we begin to see ourselves in the story, we see ourselves in these characters, and we begin to go. We look introspectively at our lives and what we're going through, what we're handling, and all that, and we begin to see, as you just said, God's at work, God is moving, God's doing things. Mm-hmm. We may not understand it completely, but the story's still being written,
and we may die not understanding.
Yeah,
there's no way. This gets so rich as we go forward from here, into not just chapter 4, but then our final wrap up session is so good. Is that Naomi probably?
Thanks, Jane. I might take one here.
Naomi probably dies. Certainly, she dies never knowing the full implications of what happens.
Yeah,
and this is good stuff that happens,
and just trusting.
Yeah,
that it's moving in that direction. And that's all we have to do every day is just trust that whatever it is that we have for today is moving us in a direction of hope.
Just keep moving.
Yeah.
Just keep moving.
But also sit there and settle.
Yeah, because even as they wait, they're working.
Yeah.
She brought home 6 scoops of barley, man. She's got work to do.
She's got beer on the...
So yeah, they're settling, but there's still stuff to do.
Exactly, yeah.
I just can't do anything about that over there.
Mm-hmm. Running while praying.
Yeah, run while you pray. All right.
Thank you guys.
Thank y'all so much. Feels good. I'm not gonna overdo it. I'm going home. I'm gonna lay down. I can't overdo it.
Up.
Once I get out of gas, it's over.
Mo's probably freaking out right now.
I've left Mo. I haven't been away from Mo in 21 days. Poor guy.
Right now.
I'm okay, but he's probably looking for me.
Oh, he probably is.
Oh, what a good dog he is. So, Sunday, we're going to give it a go. We're going to give it a go Sunday. I think it's just me and Tim and Ricky and Justin.
And who knows? Who knows what will
Nick's
happen.
moving, so pray for Nick. Mm-hmm. And Sarah is in Utah.
I told her to watch out for those folk out there.
Yeah, so she...
the Mormons.
Stop it. You and Tim are going to get... voted
Sorry,
off,
I hope I don't offend you.
But she's in Utah and she's traveling on Sunday, back on Monday, and it's gonna be fun. I'll sing all I can. We'll just see how the breathing control goes.
I'll do some goat bleeding in the background.
Good night, everybody.
Take care. Thank you guys. Thanks for joining in.